I first noticed him on a Tuesday, or maybe he had been there before and I just hadn't paid attention. But that night, something felt different. I was sitting near the back of the bus, my usual spot, earphones in, pretending to be engrossed in my phone. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, casting a sickly glow over the half-empty seats. It was late, too late, really, and the few passengers left were the same night owls and exhausted workers I had seen 100 times before, except for him. He sat 3 rows ahead, close to the doors, his body unnaturally stiff. He wasn't scrolling his phone, wasn't staring out the window, wasn't even pretending to be asleep like most people at this hour. He was just still, too still. His head tilted slightly to the side as if he were listening for something, or to someone. Then, without warning, he turned his head, slowly, deliberately, and looked straight at me. My skin crawled. It wasn't just a glance. No, that would have been normal. It was something else entirely. His eyes, dark and sunken, locked onto mine with an intensity that made my breath hitch. I looked away instantly, my heart hammering in my chest. When I forced myself to glance back, his head had returned to its original position, motionless. But I knew what I had seen. I had felt it. For the next few nights, it happened again. Always the same time, the same bus. He was always there, waiting, sitting in that exact seat. And every night I felt his gaze on me. Sometimes I caught him just before he turned away, a ghost of a smile curling at his lips. Other times, I avoided looking altogether, too afraid of what I might see. I told myself I was imagining things, that he was just another tired commuter with a vacant stare. But the unease gnawed at me, growing like a sickness in my gut. Then one night, I got off the bus, and so did he. The doors hissed, shut behind us, the bus roaring away into the dark. The street was nearly deserted, just a few dim streetlights stretching their flickering glow onto the pavement. I quickened my pace, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Footsteps. Not loud, not hurried, but perfectly in sync with mine. I turned a corner, so did he. I stopped abruptly, so did he. A cold sweat broke over my skin. I gripped my phone in my hand, trying to remind myself that I wasn't alone, that this was just paranoia, but I couldn't shake the suffocating weight of his presence behind me, looming like a shadow that shouldn't exist. Then came the whisper. Low, guttural, just beneath the sound of the wind. My name. I spun around. The street was empty. He was gone. But I knew. He was still watching. Somewhere. Waiting. That night I locked every door, checked every window, and left the lights on. My apartment had never felt this small, this vulnerable. The walls pressed in around me, the silence stretched too thin. My mind kept replaying that whisper, the way it curled through the air like smoke, thick and cloying. My name. I knew what I had heard, but that wasn't possible. I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside felt like him, standing just beyond the edge of the dark, waiting for me to close my eyes. And when I did, the dreams came. I was on the bus again, but this time I was alone. The lights flickered erratically, casting long, twisting shadows. The world outside was swallowed by blackness, an endless void. I turned my head slowly, dreading what I knew I would see. He was sitting in his usual seat. His face was wrong, his skin was gray, stretched too tight over his skull. His mouth was just a little too wide, his lips peeling back to reveal teeth. Too many teeth. And his eyes, hollow, black pits that seemed to pull at me, sucking me into the abyss. Then he moved, not like a person, There was no in-between, no natural shift. 1 second he was sitting. The next he was right in front of me, inches from my face. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My body was paralyzed under the weight of something immense and unseen. His hand rose, long, bony fingers trembling slightly, as he reached for me. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. But the terror didn't fade with the dream, because the moment my eyes adjusted to the dim light of my bedroom, my heart stopped. The closet door was open. I never leave it open. Something was wrong. The air felt thick, electric. My limbs were heavy, sluggish, like I was moving through water. And then I heard it. Scrape, a slow, deliberate drag of something along my wooden floor. My stomach twisted into a cold, hard knot. Scrape. Closer. Scrape. Right next to my bed. I didn't want to look. I couldn't. But some primal force inside me made me do it, because not knowing was worse. Much worse. I turned my head, and I saw him, crouched, beside my bed, his body folded grotesquely, bones pressing against too thin skin. His face, twisted into something beyond human, was inches from mine. His lips didn't move, but I felt the words slither into my skull like worms burrowing deep. You, let me in. And then darkness. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember the moment I lost myself. But I woke up on the floor as the sun began creeping through my curtains, its weak light barely pushing back the lingering dread. My closet was closed, again. The room was still. But I knew. I wasn't alone. I was never alone. And that night, when I stepped onto the bus, trembling, sleep-deprived, barely able to function, he was already there, waiting. And this time, when he turned his head to look at me, he smiled. I never noticed him at first. That's the scariest part. He was just there, lingering in the background of my life like a shadow I hadn't yet realized was following me. The first time I really became aware of him was on a cold November night. I was unlocking my apartment door, hands stiff from the biting wind when I felt it, that crawling sensation on the back of my neck, like I was being watched. I turned sharply, scanning the dimly lit hallway. Nothing, just the eerie hum of the fluorescent light above, flickering slightly like in some shitty horror movie. I shook it off, stepped inside, and locked the door behind me. But then, the noises started. At first, it was subtle, faint shuffling sounds in the hallway when I was home alone at night. A creak of a floorboard that I told myself was just the building settling. My neighbor across the hall, maybe. Normal apartment sounds, right? But then, I began noticing other things. The mail in my box, always neatly stacked, was sometimes shuffled like someone had gone through it. My front door handle would rattle just once late at night. Too light to be the wind, too deliberate to be random, and then came the texts. I was sitting on my couch, a beer in one hand, mindlessly scrolling through my phone when the first message came in. An unknown number. You shouldn't leave your windows unlocked. I froze. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. I lived alone. I hadn't told anyone about the feeling of being watched, the noises, the creeping paranoia that had begun to gnaw at the edges of my sanity. I stood slowly, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs as I moved to the window. Locked. Of course, it was locked, but that didn't mean it had always been. My breathing was shallow. I turned off the lights, creeping toward the peephole in my door. The hallway was empty, but that didn't calm me. Another message. You look scared? My stomach twisted. I staggered back from the door, my hands clammy, my mind racing. Who was this? A prank? Someone I knew? I typed back with shaking fingers. Who is this? No response. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in my apartment became amplified. The ticking of the clock, the low hum of the refrigerator, the occasional rustling of the trees outside my window, sending shadows clawing at my walls. By morning, the fear hadn't left. If anything, it had settled into me, burrowing deep. But I had no proof, no real reason to call the cops. A few weird texts wouldn't exactly get them to take me seriously. So I did what anyone would do. I convinced myself it was nothing, that I was overreacting. That is, until I checked my phone the next morning. A new message. You forgot to lock your door last night. I couldn't breathe. I knew I had locked it. I remembered locking it. But what if I hadn't, or worse? What if he had been inside? My entire body went cold. I stared at my phone screen, my mind struggling to process the message. You forgot to lock your door last night. No. No, that wasn't possible. I locked it. I was sure of it. Wasn't I? I rushed to the door, my hands shaking as I checked the lock. Secure. But that didn't mean it had been locked all night. What if he had been inside? What if he had been standing over me while I slept? Watching me? I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in, the shadows stretching too far, as if someone was lurking just beyond my vision. I forced myself to check every room. The closet, the bathroom, under the bed. Nothing. But when I turned back to the living room, I saw it. The coat in my closet. The one I never wore. The one that wasn't mine. It was hanging neatly, placed there like it belonged. My stomach lurched, and I nearly dropped the knife. He had been here. He had been inside my home, close enough to hear my breathing, to watch me sleep. A new message vibrated in my hand. Do you like your gift? I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. I wasn't safe. I threw open my door and ran. My bare feet slapped against the freezing apartment hallway floor as I bolted down the stairs, past my neighbors' doors, past the mailbox where I had seen my shuffled letters, past the lobby where the security camera blinked uselessly. I didn't stop until I was outside, the cold night air burning my lungs. I turned in frantic circles, searching every window, every parked car, every shadowed alleyway. He was out here, watching. And then I saw him. A man standing just beyond the streetlight's glow, still, motionless, like he was waiting. His face was obscured by the dark, but I knew. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my throat was too tight. I took a shaky step back, and he did something that made my blood turn to ice. He raised his hand and waved. Not in mockery. Not in aggression. It was slow, familiar, like a neighbor greeting an old friend, and that's when it hit me. I did know him. My stomach twisted violently as my mind clawed through the last few weeks, pulling memories from the edges of my consciousness. The rattling doorknob, the shuffled mail, the feeling of being watched, the old man in the apartment next to mine, the one I had never really noticed, the quiet, unassuming neighbor who always smiled too long. I stumbled back, my breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. The man who had been there the whole time, watching, waiting. The man who had never needed to break in, because his apartment shared a wall with mine, because he had a copy of my key. A final message appeared on my phone. See you inside. And then the light in my apartment window turned on. It started with a message, I see you. I almost laughed when I read it. Another troll, another faceless nobody trying to get a reaction out of me. My Instagram wasn't even that big, just a few hundred followers, mostly people from college and some old high school friends. Nothing worth stalking. I blocked the account. 2 minutes later, another message. Blocking me won't help Claire. I froze. I hadn't posted my name anywhere. My username was just some random mix of letters and numbers, and my profile picture didn't even show my face. A cold prickle ran down my spine. Maybe it was someone I knew, playing some sick joke. I clicked on the profile. No posts, no followers. Just a blank space where a person should be. A minute later, another message popped up. You look confused, and attached to it, a photo of me, not an old one. Not something they could have pulled from my socials. It was from that exact moment. Me, sitting on my bed, phone in hand. I felt my stomach drop. My breath hitched in my throat. My room was silent. The only sound the soft hum of my ceiling fan. My curtains were shut, my door was locked. But something was watching me. I threw my phone down like it was infected, my hands shaking. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just some hacker pulling my data. Someone was here. I forced myself to move, to check every possible place someone could be hiding. The closet, the bathroom, under my bed. I even cracked my door open and peeked down the hallway, half expecting to see a shadow slither out of sight. Nothing. But the feeling didn't go away. The sensation of eyes digging into me, burrowing under my skin. My phone buzzed again. Don't do that, Claire, you won't find me. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. I turned my phone off and shoved it under my pillow, like that would somehow keep me safe. For hours I sat there, knees pulled to my chest, listening to the silence press in around me. Every little creak of the apartment felt wrong, like the building itself was breathing. I don't remember falling asleep. But I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing again, over and over, a constant, vibrating hum against the mattress. When I finally worked up the courage to check, my stomach twisted into a tight knot. Dozens of messages, all from different accounts, all saying the same thing. Wake up, Claire. And at the bottom, a new photo. It was me. Asleep. But this time, there was something else in the picture. A shadow, tall, unshaped, standing right behind me. And then, the worst part. The message underneath. Turn around. I couldn't move. The air in my room felt thick, suffocating, like it was pressing against my skin, squeezing my lungs. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone, my pulse pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Turn around. The words burned into my brain, but I couldn't. I wanted to believe it was a trick, a sick joke, some kind of deep fake, but how? The picture was too real. The messy strands of my hair, the curve of my blanket, and that thing, that towering black void looming over me inches from where I was sitting right now. My body locked up in sheer terror. I forced myself to listen. Really listen. Nothing. Just the hum of my ceiling fan, the distant sound of cars, outside. But my instincts screamed at me I wasn't alone. I swallowed hard, my throat painfully dry. Move, Claire. But every muscle in my body resisted, frozen in that terrible moment. My phone buzzed again. Another message, you're taking too long. And then, a new photo. My stomach twisted violently. It wasn't from behind me anymore. It was right next to me. I screamed. I spun, hands flailing to shove away whatever was there. But there was nothing. Just empty air, my darkened room staring back at me. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. My whole body trembled. My mind screamed at me to run. Get out. Leave now. My phone buzzed. I didn't want to look. But I did. You can't run from me. Video file appeared beneath the message. With shaking fingers, I tapped it. The screen filled with grainy footage. It was my room. Filmed from my own phone. But it wasn't from now. It was from last night. The footage was shaky, like someone was moving through the dark, their breath rasping softly against the mic. The camera panned over my bed, over me, curled up, sleeping, oblivious. Then the screen flickered, and I saw it. A hand, pale and too long, reaching out from the darkness. Skeletal fingers hovering inches above my face. Not touching, just waiting. The hand retreated and the camera turned slowly, deliberately toward the mirror across my room. And that's when I finally saw it. The reflection showed my room exactly as it was. My bed, my desk, my sleeping form. But there was something else in the mirror. Something that wasn't there in the real room. A figure. Tall. Unnaturally thin. Its limbs distorted, bending at wrong angles. A hollow, gaping smile carved too wide. Across its face, its black, sunken eyes locked onto the camera. Onto me. The video ended. I dropped my phone, my vision blurring with sheer panic. I couldn't stay here. I leapt off the bed, nearly falling in my rush to the door. My fingers clawed at the lock, twisting, fumbling, heart jackhammering in my chest. Then, a sound. Behind me, the closet door creaking open, not all at once. Slowly, an inch, then another. And then, a whisper, right against my ear. I'm already inside. The lights flickered, and everything went black. I noticed him for the first time on a cold October night. It was late, past midnight, and the streets were nearly empty. The kind of silence that wraps around you, making every small noise feel wrong, too loud, too close. I was walking home from my shift at the diner, my breath curling in the chilly air, my footsteps echoing against the damp pavement. That's when I saw him, standing under the flickering street lamp on the other side of the road. Tall, motionless, his face hidden under the shadow of his hood. At first I thought nothing of it, just some guy waiting for a ride, maybe a drunk trying to find his way home. But as I walked, I felt it, that sensation of being watched. I glanced back. He hadn't moved, not an inch, but he was still looking at me. I quickened my pace, my apartment only a few blocks away. Every step felt heavier, my body tensed with that primal, gut-wrenching instinct that something wasn't right. I turned the corner onto my street. My building was in sight, the warm glow of the lobby light spilling onto the sidewalk. I reached for my keys. Then I heard it. Footsteps, not mine. Behind me. Slow, deliberate. I spun around. The street was empty. The man under the street lamp was gone. I scanned the shadows, the alleys, the parked cars. Nothing. But the feeling remained, the overwhelming certainty that I wasn't alone. I sprinted the last few steps to my door, my hands shaking as I shoved the key into the lock. Once inside, I bolted it shut, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I told myself I was overreacting, just my imagination playing tricks on me. That's what I wanted to believe. Until I saw my phone. A notification. A new photo. My stomach dropped. It was a picture of my apartment building, taken from outside, from right where I had just been standing. I couldn't breathe. My hands turned ice cold as I clicked on the image, my fingers trembling. The angle was slightly off, like the person had been hiding, watching. A second notification popped up, another photo. This time it was my window. The light was still on. I was in the photo. Someone had taken a picture of me. From outside. From the dark. My phone slipped from my grip, hitting the floor with a dull thud. My whole body locked up in terror. I ran to the window, yanking the blinds shut so hard they nearly tore. My phone buzzed again. A text. I like watching you. I stumbled back, my vision blurring with panic. Another text, I see you. My breath hitched in my throat. Then, a knock at the door. A single, slow, deliberate knock. I didn't move. I couldn't. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. My pulse roared in my ears, my legs trembling under me. I forced myself to step forward to press my eye against the peephole. My hallway was empty, but something wasn't right. The hallway light outside my door flickered. The walls seemed too dark, the air too still. Like something unseen was lingering just beyond my vision, waiting for me to open the door. My phone vibrated one last time, a new message, let me in. I backed away from the door, my breath coming in shallow, panicked gasps. My fingers hovered over my phone screen, hesitating between calling the cops or a friend. But who would believe me? The knock came again, louder. I nearly screamed. My back hit the wall as I stared at the door, my mind racing. The hallway was empty. I had seen it through the peephole, but the knock was real. Something was out there. A new message lit up my phone. I know you're awake. My skin crawled. He could hear me. I forced myself to move, to turn off the lights, to shrink into the shadows of my apartment. Maybe if I stayed quiet enough, he would leave. Maybe if I... A third knock. But this time, it wasn't from the door. It was from the window. My stomach twisted violently. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. No fire escape, no ledges, just sheer concrete walls leading to the ground below. Slowly, against every survival instinct screaming in my head, I turned my gaze toward the window. A figure stood on the other side of the glass. Not outside, inside. I didn't hear him come in. The moment my eyes met his, my body locked up in sheer primal terror. His face, if you could call it that, was a smear of something human stretched wrong like melting wax. His lips twisted into an unnatural grin, his teeth too white, too uniform, and his eyes, hollow dark pits, bored into mine with a hunger that made my stomach turn. My phone vibrated in my shaking hand, a new message. Finally. "You're looking at me," I screamed. I lunged for the door, my hands clawing at the locks, twisting the handle so hard my fingers burned, but the second I yanked the door open, I was somewhere else. No hallway, no apartment building, just darkness. A vast, suffocating void, stretching in all directions. The air was thick, like wading through black water. My chest constricted. I couldn't see my hands, my feet, my body, just the endless black, and then a whisper, soft, right next to my ear. "You let me in." Something cold touched my shoulder. I wasn't alone. A slow, crawling realization crept over me. This thing, it had never been outside. It had always been inside me, watching, waiting, and now, it had won. The last thing I remember, before the darkness swallowed me whole, was the sound of knocking, but this time it was coming from inside my own head. The first time I saw him, I thought it was just a coincidence. I was at the grocery store late at night, the fluorescent lights humming above as I grabbed a few essentials. The place was nearly empty, just me, the bored cashier, and a couple of late-night shoppers. That's when I noticed him, a man standing at the end of the aisle. He wasn't shopping, wasn't even pretending to. He just stood there, half hidden behind a shelf, his gaze locked on me. My stomach tightened. I forced myself to ignore it, chalking it up to paranoia. Maybe he wasn't looking at me. Maybe I was just being ridiculous. But then I turned the corner and there he was again, closer, too close. I felt it in my bones then. That unnatural stillness, that wrongness. His face was obscured under the hood of a dark sweatshirt, but I could make out something unsettling. His lips were moving, muttering something under his breath. I hurried to the self-checkout, my pulse hammering. I could still feel his stare burning into me. As soon as I paid, I practically sprinted to my car, fumbling with my keys. When I looked back, he was standing outside the store, not walking, not moving. just watching. I locked my doors the second I got in, my fingers trembling as I started the car. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. He hadn't moved. I peeled out of the parking lot trying to shake off the creeping dread curling around my spine. But that was just the beginning. Days passed. Then a week. I told myself I was being paranoid, until I saw him again. At first it was subtle. A glimpse of a figure across the street when I left my apartment. A shadow disappearing behind a tree when I took out the trash. Always distant. Always watching. And then it escalated. One night I came home late from work, the air crisp with the first bite of autumn. The street was quiet. Too quiet. I fumbled with my keys, eager to get inside. Then I felt it, that awful, suffocating certainty that someone was there, watching me. I turned my head slowly. And there he was, standing beneath the broken street lamp across the road. No more distance. No more hiding. Just standing there. His hood slightly pushed back this time. I could see his face now, pale and expressionless, his lips moving again in that silent, eerie muttering. My stomach twisted into knots. I forced myself to breathe, to move. I bolted inside, locking the door so hard my fingers ached. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs as I peeked through the peephole. He was still there, unmoving, muttering. I barely slept that night. The next morning I found something outside my door. Single Polaroid. My apartment building, taken from across the street. Another knock. Soft. Deliberate. I pressed my hand over my mouth, forcing myself not to make a sound. Then, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I know you're awake. I stared at the screen, my blood turning ice cold. My hands shook as I slowly turned off the lights, my body sinking into the darkness, and that's when I realized the knocking was coming from inside my apartment. I couldn't move. The knocking, it was inside. A slow, measured rhythm like a sick game of hide and seek. I barely breathed, my pulse hammering in my skull. My apartment wasn't big, just a bedroom, a bathroom, a tiny kitchen. I knew for a fact I was alone. At least I had been. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Don't turn around. A cold, crawling horror seized my spine. I wasn't alone. I gripped my phone so tight my knuckles ached. My entire body screamed at me to run, but where? There was nowhere to go. No way out that didn't require turning around. The air shifted, a whisper of movement behind me. The sound of something, someone, dragging their breath too close to my ear. A new text. I can hear you breathing. My fingers trembled as I tapped my phone screen trying to call someone, anyone, no signal. That's when I heard it, a wet, rasping exhale. Right behind me. My body moved before my mind caught up. I bolted for the front door, yanking at the lock with shaking hands. The moment I twisted the knob, it flew open. But outside wasn't the hallway. It wasn't my building. It wasn't anywhere I recognized. I was somewhere else. The world outside my apartment was wrong. A long, endless corridor stretched before me, lined with doors that didn't belong. The walls pulsed, shifting like breathing flesh. The air was thick with a rotten, metallic scent. Behind me, the door slammed shut. I turned. My apartment was gone. And standing in the middle of that endless corridor was him. The man from the grocery store, from the street, from the Polaroid, but he was different now. His face. It wasn't a face anymore. His skin sagged unnaturally, shifting and rippling like something underneath was pushing against it, trying to break free. His mouth opened, stretching impossibly wide, his jaw unhinging with a sickening crack. Inside, there were no teeth, just darkness, a void that pulsed like a heartbeat. And from that gaping abyss, I heard it, a chorus of voices. My voice, screaming, begging, crying for help. I stumbled backward, my chest heaving. Then he moved, not walked, jerked forward like a glitching video, his body snapping unnaturally closer without stepping. My ears rang with something, a frequency, too high, too sharp, drilling into my skull. I clamped my hands over my head, but it was inside me now, vibrating through my bones, unraveling every thought in my mind. A final message lit up my phone screen through the blur of my tears. You are mine now. My vision tunneled. My limbs weren't mine anymore. The last thing I saw before the world collapsed into an all-consuming black was his hands, stretching, opening, pulling me inside. And then, I was gone. Now that you've heard what no one should, remember, the terror doesn't end here. There are still many stories lurking in the dark, waiting to be told. So subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with your family. It helps me a lot to keep bringing you these chilling tales. And don't forget to check out the next video playing on the screen if you dare to face more nightmares.